the day before they became the disciplinarian, they were like jolly, etc., and now they're appointed. And they take on some kind of disciplinarianness. Okay, so all that, all right. So what happens to your mind? So he told us this example, because he himself was a little naughty, my teacher. He liked to watch movies a lot, so he would always take off to secretly watch movies, he once told us. Okay, so then, initially, you need to now label disciplinarian. He's been appointed to be the disciplinarian, but there's nothing, there's no disciplinariut in that person. It's just labeled, right? So, but you're not used to it yet. Okay, so you do your naughty kind of stuff, and then, oh, he comes around the corner. Oh, there's the disciplinarian. You need to be careful around in the presence of this person. Okay, so before long, initially you just have to make an effort to remind yourself he's the disciplinarian. But after a while, it's almost like it's written on his forehead. You no longer need to think. It's like, oh, disciplinarian. As if now he was independently, in and of himself, objectively, a disciplinarian. And the funny thing is, after 2 years, his term is over. There's a new disciplinarian. But when the old one walks towards you, you still go, no. Right? So it still has that sense. It still seems to be within that person being a disciplinarian. Right? And then you just work on it, and at some point, just a good old monk, never mind. And so you need to now transfer it to the other person. Right? We're all familiar with that. Now, this is not the classic example. Does anyone know what is the classic example? You all know, many of you know this example, but maybe you're not aware that I'm using it in this context.
Parenthood.
Pardon?
Parenthood.
No, I mean in the classic Buddhist example. Rope. So rope. The example that like someone called Lama Tsongkhapa gives, it's a very potent example. So now, as I talk, please visualize the situation. Really visualize it. Visualize you're walking into a dimly lit room, slightly dark room. And there is a rope, a speckled rope, okay? Kind of like together, coiled together like a snake. It looks like that's actually a rope, but it looks like a snake, the way it's arranged and because of the dim light. Imagine you make the mistake and you go, oh, snake. Can you visualize? Can you see? So you're about to put a step towards it and you go, oh, snake. Right? Can you find some snake-ute in that object? No, right? It's just the mind going, snake. All right. So that sense of like there's a separate entity, there's some snakeness coming from the object. I'm just taking that aspect. I'm not saying there are no real snakes, etc. Of course, I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about that sense of there's something separate that can be found that is called a snake. Right? That it becomes obvious when you realize actually there is no rope. There's a rope, but there is no actual snake. But when you call an actual snake body, based on a snake body, you label snake, you have that same sense of a snake coming from the side of the object as you have with the rope. And that's the only aspect you need to negate. That it's actually conventionally a snake, conventionally, it's a snake, that's all right. And you still have to be careful, don't step on it. If it's an actual snake, there's a basis that you could call it a snake, based on a certain function, based on a certain body, a certain mind, you call it a snake, and that's appropriate. Whereas in the case of the snake, in the case of the rope, it's not appropriate. Conventionally, that doesn't make sense. But to our mind, there seems to be something a little bit more. A little bit more. It's like it's in and of itself a dangerous object. It's only dangerous in relation to me being a human being. It's not dangerous to a rock. Right? I mean, a snake biting a rock, the rock's not going to go out of existence. So again, being dangerous seems to be within the object. but it's just our mind labeling dangerous in relation to the fact that I can be bitten and I can be killed by it. But that's only in relation to me. In relation to a rock, it's not dangerous, right? But it seems to be in and of itself dangerous, not in relation to me, not in relation to my mind, but objectively. That's the exaggerating aspect. And it seems to be so minor. How can be a little bit of exaggeration that's so minor cause such a big balaga? It's amazing. It's minor. But it's minor, but it's just this being a little bit off. I mean, think of the world. The axe of the world. If it kind of changes a little bit, just a few centimeters, or the temperature goes up slightly, it could have huge consequences. Huge repercussions, right? Actually, if you think about it, with global warming, what is it? 2 degrees up? More hurricanes, more droughts, more floods. It's 2 degrees, come on. 2 degrees warmer in this room is not going to make a big difference. So it seems slightly, it seems tiny, but the ripple effect of that misperception, that's huge. That's huge. So all I'm trying to say is that, of course there's a snake. Of course in relation to me it's dangerous. Of course it could bite me and I can call it dangerous. It's all true. But because I think it's in and of itself that, therefore also in relation to a person who acts negatively towards me, I now label evil. But I forget. It's just in relation to what he or she has done to me. But I see them as evil objectively. This is truly an evil person. It's got nothing to do with me. I just recognized it as it is. Right? That's how it feels. I just see this person for who they are. And that allows me to hate them. An exaggerated response of hating them. And all I can see is the negativity. My mind sees this person as objectively evil. And depending on my emotional state, therefore I believe this person is just evil and I can't see anything positive about them and I can't love them. I can't love them because that aspect is now hidden to me. The good sides are hidden to me. And you can definitely notice that when you're really, really angry with someone and someone comes along and tells you, well, this person is actually really kind. And you go like, stop talking, I'm really angry right now. I don't want to hear those good things. It almost feels like that. Sometimes it's just like that anger grow and allow it to kind of boil inside you. So anything positive about that person, if you hear, oh, they saved your life, by the way, how long are you going to be angry for? Oh, I forgot to tell you, yesterday they did such and such, and actually that's why you're still around. How long can you be angry for after hearing that? Right? But you can only be angry if you totally exaggerate the negativity of the object. So this is basically what the Dalai Lama describes here. First, we just see it as neutral. Oh, I'll give you another example about money. Money is such a funny example. Because if you think like 200 shekel, right? 200 shekel, it's not, there's no value in the object, it's just labeled. But when you put those 200 shekel next to, I don't know, 200 Russian ruble, you've never seen them, it seems like the 200 shekel are telling you, pick me up before someone else does it. Whereas with the Russian ruble, you couldn't care less. Again, actually the mind is labeling, and now it seems from within the object, there's something there. And the funny example that we were actually quite lucky in India that we went through a disaster 2 years ago. Oh, yeah, I know, some people know, right? One night, I was getting ready to go to Germany and some people wanted to buy stuff like statues. So I just withdrawn money from the bank to be able to buy those statues to take to Germany. About 30,000 rupees. How many shekel is that? That's about $500. No, it's $500. It's $500. So around, I don't know,
1,500.
maybe 2,000 shekel. Yeah, so something like that. Anyway, so I felt very lucky. I was all prepared to go the next day, and then the Indian government announces from tomorrow onwards, 500 rupees and 1,000 rupees have no value any longer. You can get the new money in the bank, but you can only get a certain amount. And I knew this was going to be chaos. I mean, everybody's going to run to the banks. Sure enough, what else can you do? Oh, it was pandemonium. It was just absolutely, it was total chaos. But the funny thing was, 500 rupees. That one day we're like, yeah. Next day, piece of paper. And it took me a while, to just ignore those 500 rupee notes. I mean, I could still give them to the bank, and I succeeded after hours and hours. But it was funny, because a year after that, I found a 500 rupee note somewhere, and I was like, There was that moment of, no. So again, it shows you there was a sense that holds a value within it. It's got nothing to do with me labeling that within it. So that's the only problem. That's the only problem. And so that gives rise, as I said, to, in the case of objects, sights and sounds, initially there's no response. Initially there's no exaggeration, but then we believe the object in and of itself holds the pleasure that I experience, and as a result of that I crave the object and I exaggerate its importance. Does that make sense? Does that ring true? Okay, let's meditate on it. Yes?
Do you consider Dharma as an object as well?
Dharma, of course! You start off with the Dharma, of course. Oh my God. Attachment to lamas. Have you ever... There's attachment to the Dharma. There's religious hatred also among Buddhists. Religious hatred, being not respectful of other traditions and considering my own tradition to be better than others. It's a huge problem, right? It exists among Tibetans, and the Dalai Lama keeps saying all religions are good. He keeps reminding people that it's relative. Buddha Dharma is like the example. The Dalai Lama uses a very nice example to describe the relativity. What does he use? What does he say? He says it's medicine. The Dalai Lama usually says it's like medicine. Okay? And all the different religious systems, they're like medicine. Now, can you say that medicine against headache is the best medicine? No. Medicine against, help me, tuberculosis, that's the best medicine? No. It depends on the disease. It depends on what you need. If you have a headache, of course, aspirin may be the best solution, but maybe ibuprofen, or what do you call it in the US? Advil. Advil, yeah. So maybe Advil is better. In terms of for you, in terms of your own needs, Advil may be best. Or aspirin may be best. Or if you have tuberculosis is best. If you have HIV, then you need retroviral what are they called? Retroviral drugs. So the same is true for Buddhism, actually. For me, Buddhism may be best. But for someone else, it's not.
In the teaching themselves, do they put any kind of mechanism to arise how skeptical you should be?
Yes, that's why we debate all the time. Always be skeptical. Don't take it. The Buddha himself said, don't accept anything I tell you. Check it as if you were to check gold. Before you buy gold, you check it first. And only then accept it. So only when you find it's useful for you. If not, leave it. Don't need to force yourself. Do something else. So here, there's a lot of emphasis on that, but we have a natural tendency. Like I said, first you were attached to being a punk. Now you're attached to being a monk. Right? So it's like you just bring it over, and then you need to learn to deal with that. Okay. So, yes.
How I take my mind seriously if you can be a monk or be a punk. It's the same thing.
Well, the difference is that being a punk, as part of the system of being a punk, doesn't offer you any mental exercises to overcome your misapprehension, while being a monk comes along with mental exercises. It's a good question. Very good debate question. That's a debate question. Okay, so being a punk or a monk, there's no difference. Yes, but the system of being a monk, if you really open yourself up to it, it's not just being a monk. It comes along with certain mental exercises that are geared towards reducing our self-cherishing.
This is
That's what you need to find out, right? That's maybe he's right. Of course, maybe that's the story I tell myself. So the only way to see the value of that is to find out. And that's pretty simple. Because if the Buddha Dharma has methods towards reducing the self-cherishing, reducing anger attachment, all you need to do is apply the methods and see whether it works. If after a month or two, instead of getting angry right away, but I get angry after a second later, that's a whole second. That's an improvement. And if I continue and it's 2 seconds and 3 seconds, wow, that's 3 seconds later I get... So it may be I'm just exaggerating for the sake of the joke, but you know, like, if a slight improvement, it works, and I'm happier, I'm a better example to others, in that case I may say Buddhism works for me. But it may be that Judaism works better for me, right? Or Christianity, because they also recognize self-centeredness, they recognize that as a problem, and there's certain techniques to overcoming it. So it's totally subjective, but of course attachment towards Dharma, attachment towards the lamas, it's a problem, okay? Because we have the basic foundation. All right, so let's leave the questions for now and do a meditation on that process, on what I just explained. So please, again, try to see it through your own experience. And one more thing that needs to be stressed. Don't go through the different steps automatically, but keep the meditation lively. Like really keeping it alive, as in like, try to generate a feeling for it that goes a little deeper than just intellectual. Kind of like take your own mind, your own situation, and bring up your own ideas during the time when I'm not talking. You may come up with your own ideas. So I'll guide you through it as before. And again, also, please, as we've done before, we do some breathing meditation, and then we do the analytical, and at the end I ask you again, whatever feeling you've come to, whatever kind of conclusion you've come to, you focus on that for a few moments and allow for it to sink deeper. Alright, so let's start with the breathing. So now we become aware of the fact that the I, or what we call the I, is actually just a label applied to this mind and body of ours. So when I say I walk, we're actually referring to the legs walking. And when the angry mind rises, I say I am angry. Is meditating, I say, I meditate. That's not how it appears. Every time we refer to I, it seems that the I is more concrete, more objective. More real, truly there. Than a mere label. Similar to the monk being called a disciplinarian. Or trying to check it. So this awareness which perceives the self to be more separate and more concrete than it actually is. Is the root ignorance. Root misapprehension. And since the exaggerated I is closer to the mind that misapprehends it, the misapprehension gives rise to another type of awareness which exaggerates the importance of the I. And the importance of the I's happiness. Giving rise to self-centeredness, that is the attachment to the I, an attachment to the I's happiness. Based on the sense that I'm more important and my happiness is more important than anything else. So now we are driven by the self-centeredness. Seeking to find happiness outside of ourselves. As we can't really be happy on account of our self-centeredness. And so look for happiness outside of ourselves. looking for happiness, first and foremost,